Hi, I'm Sara Blau, and welcome to another episode of the Optimizing Mother podcast. So excited to be here today with an older friend, Pearl Stroh, who's so experienced. She's the director of the Chabad Early Learning Center for like 30 years, works in the seminary. Pearl, can you give us a little overview of what you do and what your experience is?
Hi, everyone. Nice to be with everyone here today. My name is Pearl Stroh, and I am the director of Chabad Early Learning Center. I have been in early childhood for the past 30 years. And as you said, in Beis Rivka, I teach early childhood and special education on Wednesday evenings. And it's amazing for me to just be with little children all day and be part of their early childhood experience and then help the next generation of teachers launch their careers as well.
Right. And a mother of a large family, Avas Hashem.
Thank Hashem. I have many children and grandchildren, Baruch Hashem. I'm the oldest of 16 children. So yes, you can say early childhood has been my life from when I was born.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a mother podcast, and we're looking for ways to optimize, improve, and expand our mothering skill set. So from all your experience, I know you have a lot of tricks and tools, but what is something you're passionate about that's not something we normally think about that could really impact the chinuch of our children?
Thank you for letting me share. I am extremely passionate about the beautiful world that Hashem created for us and how, as parents and educators, we can bring nature into our children's lives. Because I always say Hashem makes a picture-perfect world, and everything that a child needs to grow and to develop is out there in the outdoors. When we think about a child's early experiences with water, with sand, with earth, all those experiences are crucial for a child's sensory development. And mothers naturally do that. You know, our children hang around in the kitchen with us, and they stick their hands into the flour as we're baking, and they help us wash the dishes, and they're, squeezing the wet laundry as the mother's putting it from the washer into the dryer. These are all crucial for a child's development, but really this is also part of nature and the world that we're surrounded with. And as an early childhood educator, I feel that we need to bring so much more of nature into the classroom to give children those early sensory experiences. That's one aspect of nature. But the other aspect of nature is just the miracles and the joy of seeing things grow, of watching the world evolve around us, of being enamored by Neflas Habayre, how Hashem created the world. And in a city, it's much harder for us to do that if we are not conscious about it and do it in an informed and planned way, because most of us live in homes without gardens outside. We don't have access to plants and animals and nature. So how do we bring that into our classrooms? And also, how do we bring that into our homes? Would you like me to focus on the home aspect?
Yes, sure, please.
Okay. So
because I don't have a barn yet in my backyard.
Okay. So I'm going to focus more on, families that live in the city, because many of your listeners, I'm sure, are challenged with that. And one of the things that is so important for children is to see nature in the raw. For instance, when we go to the supermarket and we, purchase tomatoes for Shabbos, and we say, look at the beautiful food Hashem makes, and we go home and we say a bracha bari pri adama on it, there's really no connection that tomato actually grew in the ground, and that's why we say bari pri adama. And it's important for children to watch the process, first of all, to understand it, of course, but also to have that connection to the awe and the miracles of growth, of giving children seeds and, planting on your windowsill. This is something you can do in your home, buy a small planter. If you want to start with a plant that's already, has sprouting already, so it doesn't take as long, you can definitely buy, plants that will grow within a couple of weeks that are sprouted already. But if you want to start with seeds, you can do that as well. And have your children plant the seeds, water it every day, talk about what's happening underneath the earth with that seed, how it's slowly going to open up, giving them the responsibility of watering it and turning it to face the sun. And then as the weeks go on and you share your passion and joy of watching it grow, and then waiting to see those tomatoes and then actually bringing it to your Shabbos table, you're teaching your children so much on so many levels that that is hard to replicate in a textbook. So I would definitely start with plants in your home. For those of you who are not into plants, we are, most cities have botanical gardens or, gardens to go and visit. Take your children out. Let them pick vegetables and eat it straight from the ground. I sometimes take my children to apple orchards or to vegetable patches, and you literally sit on the ground with them, wash it off and say the bracha as you're eating it. Bari pri adama, I took this from the ground and I'm eating it. Thank you, Hashem.
Amazing. So, what else can they plant besides for tomatoes in your backyard?
Oh, okay. So first of all, herbs grow very quickly. And we do this project here in school where we plant parsley, and that grows very quickly, and then you can bring it to the Seder. Children, when they see what they're doing is meaningful to not only to them, but to the family, and what they're doing, they can contribute to the adult world around them. It makes them feel very empowered. So cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, those are all very fast growing vegetables, and herbs grow very quickly as well. And that's something you can actually buy herbs that are fully grown, and they just grow. They keep growing, because every time you take a little snip, oh, we're making a salad today. Let's take some dill. Who's going to help me? Moishi, that's your plant. Do you want to, cut a piece of dill for our salad, and have them, bring that to the table? What could be more empowering than that?
Right. Well, you mentioned growing, but before you also mentioned animals. What are some chinuch lessons kids could learn from animals?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So animals opens up a whole new world for children. First of all, let's start with the sensory experiences of animals. Animals such as mammals, thinking about rabbits, guinea pigs, small pets, give children immediate sensory feedback when they're holding that soft, furry animal in their hand and they're petting it. There's something about something that's live that connects children to their emotions in a very strong way. We've seen children who have difficulty with language or special needs react so positively and do things that they weren't able to with people, but they were able to do that when they interact with animals. So that's the sensory piece and the educational piece. But regarding teaching children responsibility for animals and going through the halachas that Hashem makes us be so aware of, kindness, being kind to animals, keeping them clean, keeping them, giving them food and water, the halacha of feeding your animals before you feed yourself when you wake up in the morning.
Exactly.
Oh, we have to go. Who's ready for breakfast? Shaila. The fish, remember, we have to give the fish some food before we eat, because Hashem says always feed your animals first. When you have a pet, and fish are great too, because, for many people who don't want animals in their home, fish are easier to take care of. They don't make noise. They're not as messy. It helps them understand that they could be responsible for something that is part of the grown-up world. That an animal is really a responsibility for an adult, but as a child, they can have that responsibility as well. And also, just like we give tzedakah every day, and it reinforces the concept of giving every day, when you feed an animal every day and you keep practicing kindness, that also helps children, refine that midah of
right.
caring for
and I grew up
else.
Hearing that story of the Frierdiker Rebbe when he was thrown into the jail cell, of the animal that was tied up and how he cared for the animal. And, also the concept of tzar b'alei. Like, if you can't be mean to an animal, then for sure you can't be mean to a person. Like, it also teaches you, like what you're saying, kindness and taking care. It like brings out that caregiving, nurturing, thing in a child. So what else? What else do you think the children used to absorb from the natural world that we can still try to teach them with animals and plants about Hashem's world?
That's an excellent question. And this is something I feel passionate about also, because I've watched my own children and grandchildren absorb these lessons as well. We have a small farm in upstate New York, and I've seen my children, as they grew up, learn about natural life cycles, which is sometimes abstract and hard to explain when you're in a classroom and you're in a home that is not connected, to animals. But let's take the concept of death. Death is, as we know, the Eibishter made a world where we're born, we live a certain amount of years, and then we die. And it's, for most children, the concept of death is very terrifying. It's very removed from them. Most of the time, people don't die at home. They die in hospitals. Children don't go to levayos. The whole mystery of death is usually shrouded in pain and terror. And when they watch animals born, and first of all, just the concept of birth, let's go into birth. Oh my gosh, I've watched so many births as a young child. We were in a bungalow colony that was lucky enough to have a farm. And I watched probably about 5 to 10 births every summer from the ages of like 3 to 12. And it was so natural for me to see a cow deliver, the placenta, the baby nursing, and it wasn't anything that was taught. It was just part of my world. And children that grow up on farms just have a very healthy understanding of mating, of birth, of death. It's something that they see in a little bit distant from them because it's an animal, but yet it's real enough that they can understand that, oh, humans do this too. And therefore, when they're older and they're in the right place where they can understand how humans relate to all these life cycles, it helps them understand it in a much easier way, in a much healthier way. So when a pet dies, And we see that it's, we go over to the cage and we say, oh, what happened to our hamster? It's not moving. What does that mean? It's not breathing anymore. What happens when an animal dies? How do we bury it? Like going through all those stages of what happens when something naturally passes on helps children understand also what happens to people in a very simplistic way. And then, of course, we add the neshama aspect that people don't really die. So our bodies die because our bodies are only supposed to live a certain amount of years, but we have a neshama that never, ever dies. That's always a part of Hashem. So it helps them understand first on a very simplistic, concrete level what happens to the body. And then when they're, from a young age, when we start teaching about a neshama, they can incorporate that's how we are different from animals as well.
Wow. You grew up on a farm and your father was a sheikhet?
So I didn't grow up on a farm. We spent our summers, every summer, on a farm. It was a small bungalow colony owned by a farmer. So we had access to the farm. It was right next door, and we got warm milk from the cow every day. Literally, we drank raw warm milk, which is heaven.
Wow.
And year after year, we just saw that. My father was a sheikhet for 42 years. That's something so interesting also. When children see shechita, and until the past 80 to 100 years, most people lived near farms or on farms, and they took their chickens, they took it to the sheikhet, they saw it being shechted, they saw their mother opening it up, koshering it, they saw the whole process, they saw what lungs and heart and livers look like. They didn't need a biology class for that. And when it's in a natural way, and when you see shechita and you see how painless it is, and the beauty of how Hashem told us to shecht animals, it's not horrific for children when it's part of their world. It's just nature for them. It's normal. And they understand that the chicken they're eating was once running around on their farm, pecking at the corn. And I feel that that's very healthy for a child to see how Hashem gave us a beautiful world, how he told us to utilize the things in the world, and how we could be part of that process, and how children also could be part of every part of the process. When we chef the chickens and the children come and they help pull the feathers out, and then they help rinse it off, and they're actively part of helping their family have food for Yontiv. And it's something that was always done. It's just recently that our children don't have that access. So if you have any sons who are interested in shechita, spend your Chalamayit taking them to a shlachtos. Let them go and observe. Let them ask questions. Let them put on gloves and poke around. It's so good for them to understand and to know and to feed into that interest. And that actually brings me to another point I want to talk about with nature. Children really, I think instinctively, they are so connected to nature and they enjoy it so much. But as adults, sometimes we think, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with the children today? Where should we go? Oh, it's Pesach coming up. It's Chalamayit. What are we going to do? Let's go to this amusement park. Let's go to that arcade. Really? Something that is so beautiful for a family to do together and is on an emotional and physical and spiritual level so important for children is to give them as much access to nature as possible. And that is very challenging in a city environment. So one of the things our family has done over the years, which has been amazing and bonding for the family and also so fulfilling on so many levels, is we take our children camping. It's really not so hard. If you do it in nice weather, obviously colder weather, it's more challenging, but there are so many campsites within 2 hours out of New York City. $25 to $40 a night, not more than that. And you buy a simple tent. The family, you pack up a bunch of food together. If you don't know how to start a fire or get things going, there are usually people around who can help you. But once you do it, once you get the hang of it, and spend a night out with your family in nature, with cooking the franks over the fire and, sitting and singing songs together and, setting up their beds one next to the other inside the tent. I find that over the years, my children remember those experiences more than any of the more commercial fun that we've had with them. And I understand why. There's something so beautiful about waking up to the chirping of the birds, opening up the tent and peeking out and being the first one out of the tent in the morning. They remember these small things in such a strong way. So yeah, take your family out, go camping, spend time in nature if you can.
Right. It probably also helps you appreciate basic davening better. Hanaisin l'sach libina or Hameir l'Aretz, the sun. It gives you this appreciation for Hashem. Do you think the kids naturally connected the nature to an awareness and connection and appreciation of Hashem, or is that something parents have to actively educate them?
Some children are more naturalistic learners and you see it in them from when they're born, but some not. So you're right, Sarah. It's really important for parents to talk about it more and to say, oh my gosh, we just went to visit a farm. Did you hear that rooster roosting? Do you know that that's the way people always got up? Before alarm clocks, Hashem made natural alarm clocks where they got everyone out of bed right at the crack of dawn so they can get up and, and start, diening the Eibishter. The excitement has to be in you, and you have to infuse your family with it. Absolutely. And do things, you have to find things also that work for yourself. I know some women tell me, no animals in my house, no whatsoever, or I can't stand the smell of, of a rabbit, or I can't, I don't like when there's plants in my house. Don't do things that are out of your comfort zone, but find other people who can. So if you have a sibling or someone else who loves to go to visit places that you don't like to go to, send your kids along, or do things out of the house with them if you don't want to bring them into the house. But just have an awareness that this is something you want to infuse your children with, and they're going to take it with them the rest of their lives. Another piece also, Sara, is I find that many children are very afraid of animals because they're not exposed to it from when they're young. Now, I understand, a large dog, coming pouncing at them will frighten anyone, but many children are afraid of any association with animals just because it hasn't been in their sphere, in their world. So try to give your children experiences when they're young, because children naturally are not afraid. They will naturally curiously touch animals, put their hands in the earth, taste anything. That's what children do. So try to do that when they're young, and you'll learn with them and outgrow your fears, by starting small, when your children are small.
Can you tell us about the twin goats?
Oh my gosh. So that's something also, Sara, that just naturally elicits a response of awe. We actually just had a set of twin goats. We had another, when I spoke to you months ago, I was talking about a set of twin goats born last year, but we had another goat delivered 2 weeks ago, another set of twin goats.
Really? Is that common? Is it common for goats to have twins?
Certain breeds have 2 at a time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that breed, keeps having 2 at a time. Anything new and small, it's like, oh my, that's so cute. Right. But when you see a goat one day that's heavy, pregnant and heavy, and the next morning you come back and there's 2 live creatures next to her bleeding and, nursing from her, and no matter how young you are, it's, oh my, that's awesome. And it's that, wow. that birth is awesome all the time, and it's such a miracle. But when you see it like in front of your face, like those 2 babies right there who were not there yesterday, it just connects you to Hashem like nothing else can. I tell my children all the time that for some people, it's hard to daven in a siddur. It takes a vayta for them to learn to be able to express themselves through a siddur. And the Baal Shem Tov, he went out in the forest and nature inspired him and he sang to Hashem in the forest. And some children need to sing in nature. They need to connect to Hashem in nature. And many adults too, I relate
to that. I like to go to the water and just, I love it, seeing the reflecting lights and everything. Do you think it affects children's behavior also? Like there's affecting the emunah. Are there other positive impacts in their behavior when they're exposed to nature?
So first of all, going back to that sensory piece, it's definitely calming when children are interacting with their environment. Even in the classroom, like if you add water and sand, most classrooms have water tables, sand tables, plants, animals, just giving children an opportunity to interact with the natural world around them is a calming experience, even if it's not outdoors. But for sure, there's no question that children, we see it. We used to do this in our home also. Every Sunday when our children were young, we used to go to the beach. We don't live far from Coney Island. And my husband and I used to watch our children as they got out of the car and ran to the sand. You literally saw their expression change and their whole bodies like let go as they took off their shoes and socks and buried their feet in the sand and listened to the waves coming at them. It's awesome. It's therapy, and it's all there. It's all out there. And for some children, it's the water, and some children, it's walking out in the woods. And for some children, it's even the awareness that for some children, they need an extra 15 minutes in the bathtub playing with the water. Like I always say, you don't have to go to the toy store to give children the stimulation that they need. Hashem built it in.
Or the technology, right?
Oh, technology actually takes you even away from being present in the moment. Forget about not in nature. You can have a child sitting outdoors involved in nature and, surrounded by nature. If something's in their hand, if there's a screen in their hand, they totally cannot connect to the world around them. So yes, there's
right. But it's also like talking about being aware and actively and consciously creating experiences that don't require the technology, the natural world, the way Hashem made it. And yes. I feel like it's also, even as adults, we have a mitzvah to have Avas Hashem, to have Yiras Hashem. What you describe, that awe is so conducive to Yiras Hashem, to having that awe of Hashem who created the world, or the Avas Hashem, like just, I hear your excitement in your voice. And when kids feel it, this is a mitzvah to love the Eibishter who gave us everything that we have in the world. What other ideas do you have for us apartment or city dwellers?
So, I'll just review to start with plants in your home, because for most people, that's the easiest thing for them to do. So definitely, first of all, start with plants. If you can, a small pet. Fish are nice also and teaches responsibility, but it's hard for a young child to take care of fish. You have to change the water. It's harder for a younger child to be involved with the day-to-day process of caring for fish. But if you're into fish, go ahead. I mean, we have a fish tank at home, and we're up to like the 7th generation of babies, and we watch the fish lay eggs. They look like little
7th generation
bubbles.
Of babies from your original fish?
Yes.
No way. How many years is that?
It's 3 years, same tank. And for children to see the little bubbles that look like eggs, and then to see all the bubbles have little black dots in it for 2 eyes, and then tiny, tiny little fish come wiggling out. It is awesome. Any way you look at it. There's so many ways. If you're out of New York or not in a city and you can have things outside, get some chickens and ducks. They're not hard pets to take care of. You just need some space for them.
I temporarily had 22 chicks, which grew into chickens in my backyard one summer. Amazing. It was quite a project, a family project. How about birds? What do you think about birds?
So we have birds at home. Also, birds are harder for young children because they're very quick and they have to be trained, and you need patience. So I find that the birds are better for teenagers. They're too fast and unpredictable for very young children. You can look at them and you can feed them, but they're not interactive until you get old enough to be able to hold your finger still and train them. But yeah, if you like birds, go for birds. Yeah.
How's the taste of those fresh vegetables?
I think,
can your kids tell the difference between the freshly homegrown one and the store one?
So I don't know if some of it is saying, hey, because they're so excited about it and they say, this is mine, and it tastes so good because their enthusiasm. I don't know that. I think they do. About 2 summers ago, I'll just relate, my son grew over the summer a bunch of vegetables. And in late August, we had a complete Shabbos salad made up of all the vegetables that he made. The pride on his face as he walked around and scooped out that salad to everyone.
Wow.
There's just nothing like it. He spent all summer literally picking out the weeds and keeping the chickens away from those vegetables and getting upset anytime any animal got any of them and watching over it so carefully. And the sense of satisfaction children get from a long-term project being completed, and also the awe. I mean, my son would wake me up some mornings and say, I see a pepper, mommy, come and see it. Like, okay, can we wait 10 minutes?
Wow.
But I don't think there's anything else that has that kind of, that gives the children such feedback like watching things grow.
It's so interesting because when I reached out to you for the podcast, right, knowing that you have all this experience, I thought maybe you'd give us tips and tools and discipline. You really surprised me, but I'm thrilled because it, gives me a new excitement to plan, whether it's for the summer or Chol Hamoed, more natural experiences where I can deepen my children's appreciation of Hashem, which is a main goal of chinuch for all of us as mothers. So what would be your wrapping up words? Your to-go message, if you had to, say one thing to all the listeners today, what would that be?
Okay, so before I say that, I just want to say, if you do go on Chol Hamoed for picking fruits and vegetables, just know that you need to eat whatever you pick on that day, and you can't for Yontiv. You're not allowed to pick it for after Yontiv. So
interesting. Make sure. So if you pick the blueberries, make the blueberry pie that day. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Eat it or cook it or do that. So, cause sometimes, people come back with tons of stuff and you're not supposed to pick on Chol Hamoed unless it's mamash.
See, another opportunity for a halacha lesson that I never knew. Thank you.
So what I would wrap up and say is this. I find there's every answer to anything in life is always in the Torah. Hashem created everything all in there. When we have any questions about child development or, how to speak to children about different topics, or our children are struggling with something, it's all in there. We just have to look for it. And for me, one of the places that I find a lot of answers when it comes to early childhood is in the way Hashem created the world. And when I look at classrooms and I see children's needs and what they need, I always think back to the basics. Like, what can I give to help this child that Hashem planned for already? Not which catalog can I find something in, or I know Hashem has the answer. Let me find it. Of course, if the water table's already made, I don't have to take them out to the river to play with water. I'll purchase a water table for my classroom, but understanding that when you go back to the basics and close your eyes and think, Hashem made this world perfect for children. What is in this world that can help this specific child? You'll find it. The answers are all there.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing your experience. Thank you to all our listeners. And don't forget to subscribe to the Optimizing Mother podcast and let your friends know about it as well. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you today.
Same here. Thank you, Sarah.